Welcome to Coconut Tail channel.
I woke up to a pink sticky note on the fridge saying my wife was leaving for 2 weeks with her trainer and needed some space. I stood there with my lukewarm coffee, 12 years of marriage dissolving in my hand. That day, I decided I would no longer be the victim, but the villain in her story. It was finally the beginning of the real me. My name is Brian Callahan, and I fix cars for a living. Not glamorous, but honest work. My hands are permanently stained with motor oil. My back aches from crawling under engines, and I smell like WD-40 more often than cologne. Natalie used to say she loved that about me, the authenticity of it all. That was before she discovered yoga pants, green smoothies, and apparently, personal trainers named Dylan. The house felt different now, like a museum exhibit titled Failed Marriage, American Suburb Edition. Everything was too clean, too staged. Natalie's vanilla candles were still burning in the living room, their cloying, sweet scent mixing with the ghosts of her expensive perfume. The security cameras she had insisted on installing last month suddenly made perfect sense. She had planned this. I walked over to the kitchen window and looked out at our perfectly manicured lawn. Mrs. Hargrove, the next-door neighbor, was already peeking through her blinds. In a town like Oakwood, news spread faster than gossip at a church picnic. By noon, everyone would know that Natalie Callahan had left her mechanic husband for a younger man. The burner phone was hidden behind the coffee filters. Real amateur work. I almost laughed at the cliché, the secret phone just like in a bad movie. But the messages inside were very real. 3 months of intimate messages and photos that left no doubt about their inappropriate relationship, selfies in my favorite flannel shirt, and hotel reservations that turned my stomach. Dylan Reeves, 26 years old, personal trainer at Apex Fitness, drives a leased Tesla, and apparently specializes in helping married women discover their inner goddess. His Instagram was a parade of shirtless gym selfies and motivational quotes about living your truth. The kind of guy who literally uses literally in every sentence and thinks protein powder is a food group. I scrolled through their conversation, each message a fresh stab wound. Natalie, my pragmatic wife, who used to make fun of social media influencers, was sending hard eyes emojis and planning weekend getaways. The woman who once said Dylan looked like a Ken doll with daddy issues was now calling him her soulmate. My phone vibrated. A text from my partner Todd. Saw Natalie's car at the airport. Everything okay? I replied, never better. She's on a self-discovery trip. What kind of trip? The kind that ends with divorce papers. The landline rang, Natalie's voice on the answering machine, breathless and panicked. Brian, I know you are there. Pick up. We need to talk about this like adults. I am not the bad guy here. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. I just had the courage to do something. Courage. That is what she called abandoning her husband via a sticky note. I poured myself another coffee and sat at our kitchen table, the same table where we had planned our future, discussed having kids, argued about money. Now, it looked like proof of my own stupidity. How long had she been planning this? How many of our friends knew? How many pitying looks had I missed? The garage was my sanctuary, always had been. I owned Callahan's Auto Repair on the edge of town, a place where things made sense. Engines had problems, you diagnosed them, you fixed them. No hidden meanings, no emotional manipulation, just honest work with predictable results. Todd was waiting for me when I arrived, along with Steve and Paul, my other mechanics. 3 guys who had been with me for years, who understood that loyalty meant something. Boss, Todd said, barely meeting my eyes. Heard about Natalie. News travels fast. Mrs. Peterson came in for an oil change this morning. She said she saw Natalie loading suitcases at 5 in the morning. Of course she had. Mrs. Peterson probably had a police scanner and a direct line to the local paper. So what is the plan? Steve asked. I looked at my guys. Todd with his beer belly and endless supply of bad jokes. Steve who could diagnose any engine problem just by the sound. Paul who was putting 2 kids through college on a mechanic's salary. These were my people, not Natalie's wine and cheese circle that always made me feel like the hired help at my own dinner parties. The plan is we work, I said. Business as usual. But even as I said it, I knew everything had changed. Natalie had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The question was, did I want to be the victim in this story, or did I want to be something else entirely? By noon, my phone had 10 missed calls from Natalie. I deleted them all without listening. The weekly rental above Frankie Malone's boxing gym smelled of decades of sweat, broken dreams, and industrial disinfectants. The walls were so thin I could hear every grunt, every hit on the heavy bag, every motivational speech Frankie gave to the kids who thought boxing was their ticket out of nowhere. It was perfect. Natalie had been back from her trip for 3 days, and the panic in her voicemails was escalating beautifully. It turned out Dylan had been held up at customs, something about irregularities in his passport. Amazing how a simple call to my buddy who worked at border security could create such unannounced random inspections. I was sipping my morning coffee when Mrs. Hargrove knocked on my door. She was holding a casserole dish and wearing the expression of someone who had won the neighborhood gossip lottery. "Brian, honey, I brought you a tuna noodle casserole. I figured you could use some home cooking." Translation: I want details and I am bribing you with carbs. "That is very kind of you, Mrs. Hargrove. It is such a shame about Natalie. Although, between you and me, I always thought she thought too highly of herself. Remember when she complained that my wind chimes were too loud? Wind chimes. As if the sound of gentle music offended her delicate sensibilities. I let her talk. In a town like Oakwood, Mrs. Hargrove was better than a public relations firm. By evening, her version of events would reach every coffee shop, hair salon, and church basement within a 10-mile radius. "Of course, some say you drove her to it," she continued, watching my face closely. "Working all the time, never taking her to fancy places. But I told Marge Peterson," I said, "that man worked his fingers to the bone for that woman, and this is how she thanks him. I appreciate your support, Mrs. Hargrove. You know what you need? A good lawyer. My nephew Danny handles divorces. He took his own wife to the cleaners after she ran off with her Pilates instructor. He got the house, the car, and half her retirement fund. I filed that information away. I will keep that in mind." After she left, I went down to the gym. Frankie was working with a teenager on footwork, shouting combinations in his gravelly voice. Frankie had been a semi-pro boxer back in the day before a detached retina ended his career. Now he trained kids and middle-aged guys like me who needed to hit something. "Callahan," he called out. "You look awful." "I feel worse." "Good. Anger makes you focused. Go change." 20 minutes later, I was working the heavy bag, letting 12 years of frustration flow through my fists. Every punch was a memory. Natalie rolling her eyes when I tracked mud into the house. Natalie forgetting to mention dinner parties until the last minute. Natalie introducing me as just my husband, as if I were a piece of furniture that happened to talk. "Your wife called here," Frankie said during my break. "What, this morning? Wanted to know if you were acting erratically. I told her you seemed pretty rational given the circumstances." The audacity was breathtaking. Natalie was worried about my mental state. The woman who had abandoned her marriage for an Instagram influencer with the personality of a protein shake. "What did you tell her? That if she was worried about your well-being, maybe she should not have run off with a muscle-bound pretty boy." I laughed despite myself. I bet she loved that. She hung up on me. But she will be back. Women like that, they cannot stand not controlling the narrative. Frankie was right. Natalie had spent our entire marriage managing my image, turning me into her version of an acceptable husband. The blue-collar guy with a heart of gold, a little rough around the edges, but trainable. A project she could show off to her friends. "Look how I have domesticated him." Well, the project was officially canceled. I was heading back up to my apartment when I saw it. My truck parked in the gym lot with "Not Man Enough" spray painted on the hood in bright red letters. The rage hit me like a physical force. This was not just vandalism, it was a message. Someone wanted me to know exactly how they saw me. The inadequate husband who could not satisfy his wife. I called the police more for the report than any hope of justice. Officer Jenkins arrived 20 minutes later, took photos, and asked the obvious questions. Did I have enemies? Anyone who might want to harm me? "My wife left me for her personal trainer," I said. "Take your pick." Officer Jenkins nodded sympathetically. He had gone through his own divorce 2 years earlier. Another casualty of the Oakwood relationship graveyard. "It could be random," he said, "but the wording suggests otherwise. You should probably install some security cameras, Brian, and watch your back. Domestic situations can get ugly fast." After he left, I stood staring at my defaced truck. The paint job would cost $800 I did not have, money that would have to come out of the business. But the real cost was the humiliation. Everyone who saw that truck would know exactly what it meant. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. How does it feel to lose everything? I stared at the message, my mind racing. Natalie would not text from a random number. She was too direct for games. Dylan was too stupid for psychological warfare. So who was pulling the strings? I saved the number and went upstairs. It was time to stop playing defense. The answer came at 3 in the morning when I could not sleep and decided to scroll through Natalie's social media like a masochist with a smartphone. Her Instagram was a carefully curated montage of our marriage. Romantic dinners, vacation photos, anniversary celebrations. The comments section was a goldmine of feigned sympathy and thinly veiled gossip. But it was the comment from her best friend Vanessa that stopped me cold. Sometimes you have to break a few hearts to find your true self. So proud of you for being brave enough to follow your bliss. Vanessa Sinclair, Natalie's college roommate, maid of honor at our wedding, and the woman who had been whispering poison in my wife's ear for months. I should have seen it coming. Vanessa had never liked me, always treating me like Natalie's unfortunate mistake. At every dinner party, every social gathering, she would make little comments about Natalie settling or wasting her potential. I checked Vanessa's profile and started digging. What I found was interesting. Her own marriage had imploded 6 months earlier. Her husband Michael had left her for a coworker, taking half their assets and leaving her bitter, broke, and looking for someone to blame. Misery loves company, and apparently, it also loves to recruit. The next morning, I drove to Apex Fitness. Dylan's Tesla was parked in the lot, gleaming white with custom plates that read "Fit God." I sat in my vandalized truck and watched him through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the gym. He was training a middle-aged woman, standing too close and assisting with her form as she did squats, the exact same routine he had used on Natalie. I waited until his session ended, then followed him to the smoothie bar. Dylan was everything I was not: tall, tanned, with the kind of sculpted muscles that only came from having exercise as a full-time job. He ordered something called a Warrior Bowl and flirted with the teenage cashier while he waited. "Dylan Reeves," I said, approaching from behind. He turned, and I saw the moment recognition hit him. His confident smile faltered, replaced by something between guilt and fear. "Brian." "Hey man. Listen, about Natalie." "Relax," I said. "I am not here to fight. In fact, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For showing me who my wife really is. 12 years wasted on someone who would throw away a marriage for a few Instagram-worthy moments. You did me a favor." Dylan's confusion was almost comical. This was not the script he had prepared for. The angry husband, the dramatic confrontation, the chance to play the romantic hero stealing the neglected wife from her brutish husband. "That is surprisingly mature of you," he said. "I am a mature guy. In fact, I am so grateful that I want to make sure everyone knows how happy you two are. Do you mind if I take a picture?" For Natalie's social media. Before he could object, I snapped a photo of him holding his ridiculous smoothie bowl, looking confused and slightly panicked. The caption I posted on Natalie's Instagram later read, "When you find your soulmate, every moment is a celebration. Blessed and thankful. New beginnings." The comments started immediately. Natalie's professional contacts, her family, her book club friends, all seeing her husband publicly celebrating her broken trust. The humiliation was perfect, but I was just getting started. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Danny Peterson, Mrs. Hargrove's nephew and the most aggressive divorce attorney in Oakwood. His office was above the hardware store, decorated with taxidermy trophies and law school diplomas I had never heard of. "Aunt Hargrove said you needed a good lawyer," Danny said, leaning back in his chair. "She also said your wife has been involved in an inappropriate relationship with a pretty boy trainer." "That is the situation." "How long have you been married?" 12 years. "Kids?" "No." "Assets?" "The house is in both our names." "I own my business outright." Danny smiled, his eyes gleaming with a predatory interest. "Proof of the inappropriate relationship?" I showed him the burner phone, the messages, the hotel receipts. His smile widened. "This is good. Really good. In this state, evidence like this can influence the division of assets. We can make this very expensive for her." "I do not want her money," I said. "I want something else." "What is that?" "I want her to understand what it feels like to lose everything." Danny's expression shifted from professional to intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" I told him about Vanessa, the social media campaign, my suspicions that this had all been orchestrated. Danny listened, taking notes, nodding occasionally. "You know," he said when I finished, "most guys in your situation just want to get it over with. Take their hit, split the assets, move on. But you are thinking strategically. I am a problem solver. Always have been. Good. Because I have some ideas that might interest you. We talked for another hour, laying out a plan that was perfectly legal and absolutely devastating. When I left Danny's office, I felt something I had not felt in months. Hope. My phone rang as I walked back to the truck. Natalie's number. Brian, we need to talk. We do? That post on my Instagram. You cannot do things like that. It is humiliating. Humiliating for who? For both of us. People are asking questions. My boss saw it. My mother called crying. Sounds like a personal problem. Brian, please. I know you are hurt, but we are adults. We can handle this maturely. Like leaving a note on the fridge? That kind of maturity? Silence. Then, I want to come get my things. When? Tonight. 7 o'clock. I will make sure the door is unlocked. After I hung up, I called Todd at the shop. I need a favor, I said. And bring Steve and Paul. We are going to have some fun. Natalie arrived exactly on time, driving her silver BMW, as if she were approaching a crime scene. She had brought backup. Vanessa was sitting in the passenger seat, probably there to provide moral support. I watched them from my apartment window as they sat in the car for 5 minutes having what looked like an intense conversation. Finally, they got out. Natalie walked toward the house with the cautious steps of someone entering enemy territory. Vanessa stayed behind near the car, phone in hand, ready to call for help if needed. What she did not know was that I had spent the afternoon preparing for this moment. I had changed the locks, as was my legal right according to Danny. I had also installed a few discreet recording devices, perfectly legal in my own home. More importantly, I had invited an audience. Todd, Steve, and Paul were waiting in the garage, ostensibly working late on an engine rebuild. Mrs. Hargrove was conveniently watering her lawn. Even Officer Jenkins was patrolling the neighborhood, thanks to a call about suspicious activity I had made an hour earlier. Natalie knocked on the front door. I took my time answering. Brian, she said, trying to smile. Thanks for this. I know it is awkward. Come in. Both of you. Vanessa followed Natalie inside, her eyes scanning the room as if expecting an ambush. She was a thin woman with sharp features and aggressive blonde highlights that screamed recently divorced and angry. I just need to grab some clothes and personal items, Natalie said. I will not take anything that is not mine. Take whatever you want, I said. I am not attached to any of it anymore. She looked surprised by my reasonableness. Natalie had always been able to read my moods. But apparently, 12 years of marriage had not prepared her for this version of me. Calm, detached, almost friendly. They went upstairs to the bedroom. I could hear Natalie opening drawers. Vanessa was whispering advice. After 20 minutes, they came back down with 2 suitcases and a box of books. Is that all? I asked. For now. I will come back for the rest later when we have had time to process all of this. Process all of this, I repeated. Is that what we are calling it? Brian, I know you are angry. I am not angry, Natalie. I am grateful. Vanessa stepped forward. Grateful for the wake-up call. For showing me what my life really was. For giving me the chance to start over with someone who actually wants to be with me. Someone. Natalie's voice was sharp. Are you seeing someone already? Let us just say I am exploring my options. Turns out there are plenty of women who appreciate a man with a steady job and functional emotional intelligence. It was a lie, but a useful one. I could see it hitting Natalie exactly where I had aimed. Her ego, her sense of control, her assumption that I would wait indefinitely while she found herself. Who? Vanessa asked. That is really none of your business, is it? I looked directly at Vanessa. Although I do appreciate all the advice you gave Natalie. It really helped clarify things. Vanessa's face paled. What advice? You know, about following her bliss. Not settling. About how she deserved better than a blue-collar husband who would never be good enough for her social circle. I never said that. Did not you? Natalie tells me everything. Or she used to, anyway. How you encouraged her to join that gym. How you said she should explore her options. How you helped her realize she was wasting her life with someone beneath her station. Natalie looked back and forth between us, confusion replacing her careful composure. Vanessa, what is he talking about? Nothing. He is trying to cause trouble between us. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. Because I have some interesting voicemails from someone who sounds exactly like you. Vanessa, care to hear them? I did not actually have any voicemails from Vanessa, but the bluff worked. Her face crumpled, and I knew I had hit the mark. You manipulated my wife? I continued, feeding her dissatisfaction. encouraging her to throw away 12 years of marriage because you could not stand seeing her happy when your own life had fallen apart. That is not true. Your husband left you 6 months ago. He took half your money, leaving you bitter and alone. So you decided Natalie should join you in the misery club. Misery loves company, right, Vanessa? Natalie stared at her best friend with growing horror. Vanessa, is that true? Natalie, do not listen to him. He is trying to manipulate you. Like you manipulated her, I insisted. Like you encouraged her to step outside the marriage because you could not stand seeing her in a stable relationship when yours had failed. Stop, Vanessa said, but her voice was weak. You know what is really sick about this? I continued. You did not care about Natalie's happiness. You just wanted to drag her down to your level. And you succeeded. Congratulations. Natalie sat heavily on the couch, her face white. Vanessa, please tell me that is not true. Vanessa looked around the room like a trapped animal, then made her choice. Natalie, you were wasting your life with him. You said so yourself. You felt trapped, unfulfilled. I just helped you see what was already there. By encouraging her to have an inappropriate relationship, by encouraging her to live authentically with a personal trainer who is seeing multiple women at once. That got Natalie's attention. What? I pulled up Dylan's Instagram on my phone, scrolled to a photo from 2 days earlier. That is Dylan with Claire Thompson. Yesterday, it was Hannah Reed. Today, it is someone named Lexi. Your soulmate is running a rotation, Natalie. You are not his girlfriend. You are Tuesday and Thursday. Natalie grabbed my phone, swiping through the photos. Her face went through a series of expressions: denial, recognition, humiliation, rage. He told me I was special, she whispered. You are special, Vanessa said desperately. That does not change anything. It changes everything. Natalie exploded. You ruined my marriage for this? For a man who treats me like just another client? Your marriage was already over. No, it was not. It was work, it was routine, but it was not over. And now it is because I listened to you. The argument that followed was everything I had hoped for and more. 12 years of friendship dissolved into accusations and recriminations, with me as a silent observer, taking mental notes. When Vanessa finally stormed out, Natalie was crying, and I almost started to feel sorry for her. Almost. Brian, she said through her tears. I am so sorry. I did not know. You did not want to know? I corrected. There is a difference. Can we fix this? Can we try again? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. She was beautiful, successful, smart. She was also selfish, easily manipulated, and had just proven she was willing to throw away everything we had built together on the advice of a bitter friend and the attention of a pretty boy with no substance. No, I said. We cannot. Brian, please. The papers will be filed tomorrow. Danny Peterson is representing me. You should get your own lawyer. You are really going to divorce me over this? You divorced me the moment you walked out that door with Dylan. I am just making it official. After she left, I sat in my empty house and felt something I had not expected. Relief. The worst was over. Now came the fun part. The high school reunion was Natalie's idea of hell made manifest. A gymnasium full of people she had spent 20 years trying to impress, all gathered to judge each other's life choices. She had been dreading it for months, which made it the perfect venue for my final act. 6 weeks had passed since our confrontation. The divorce papers were filed, the assets were being divided, and Natalie's life was unraveling with mathematical precision. Dylan had ended things the day after I showed her his Instagram rotation. Her job at the PR firm was in jeopardy after her personal drama started affecting her professional relationships. Vanessa had moved to Phoenix, severing all ties with Oakwood and taking her toxic influence with her. I, meanwhile, was thriving. The shop was busier than ever. Apparently, being the wronged husband in a small-town scandal was good for business. I had lost 15 pounds of fat training at Frankie Malone's gym. I had even gone on a few dates, nothing serious, but enough to remind me that there were women in the world who did not see me as an improvement project. The reunion was held at Oakwood High School, in the exact same gymnasium where Natalie had been prom queen and I had been the guy fixing the sound system for the school plays. The irony was not lost on me. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a new suit that actually fit and feeling better than I had in years. The gym was decorated with balloons and banners in the school colors, round tables scattered across the basketball court, a DJ playing hits from our graduation year. Natalie was already there, standing near the punch bowl with a forced smile and desperate eyes. She had lost weight too, but not in a healthy way. Stress and heartbreak had carved hollows into her cheeks and put shadows under her eyes. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my truck payment, armor against the judgment she knew was coming. Brian, Tracy Bennett, our class president, appeared at my elbow. "You look fantastic. I heard about you and Natalie." "I am so sorry." "Do not be," I said. "Best thing that ever happened to me." Tracy's eyes widened. That was not the response she expected from the husband who had been betrayed. "Really? Really? Turns out there is life after marriage to the wrong person." Word spread quickly around the room. Brian Callahan was not broken, was not bitter, was not hiding at home licking his wounds. He was confident, successful, and apparently doing just fine without his wife who had stepped outside the marriage. I worked the room like a politician, catching up with old classmates, telling edited versions of my story that painted me as the hero rather than the victim. The narrative was simple. I had married young, worked hard to build a life, and discovered my wife was not the person I thought she was. Now, I was free to find someone who truly appreciated me. Meanwhile, Natalie was getting the other treatment. The sympathetic head tilts, the carefully phrased questions, the subtle judgment disguised as concern. Everyone knew about Dylan, about the inappropriate relationship, about how she had left her husband via a sticky note. In a room full of people who had known us both since we were teenagers, there was nowhere for the truth to hide. The DJ called for attention around 10 o'clock. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special request from one of our alumni. Brian Callahan has something he would like to share." I had not requested anything, but I was not going to waste the opportunity. I walked up to the microphone, looked out over the sea of faces, and found Natalie's eyes across the room. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I said. "It is great to see everyone, to catch up on old times, and see how far we have all come." Polite applause. Some of you know that Natalie and I are getting a divorce. It has been a difficult time, but also a learning experience. I have learned a lot about loyalty, about friendship, about the difference between the person you marry and the person they become. The room was quiet as a grave now. Natalie looked like she wanted to disappear. I have learned that some people will stick by you no matter what, and others will abandon you the second something better comes along. I have learned that trust, once broken, cannot be fixed with apologies and promises. Most importantly, I have learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best. Natalie leaving me for her personal trainer was devastating at first, but it also freed me from a marriage that had become a performance, a life that was more about appearances than happiness. It showed me who my true friends were, and it gave me the chance to start over with someone who actually wants to be with me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Natalie's face was white, so I want to thank Natalie publicly for having the courage to show me who she really is, for teaching me that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize you had nothing worth keeping. The silence was deafening. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and stepped off the makeshift stage, leaving Natalie to deal with the fallout. She found me in the parking lot 20 minutes later, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do that to me?" she asked. "In front of everyone we know." "Do what? Tell the truth? Humiliate me?" "You humiliated yourself, Natalie. I just refuse to pretend otherwise. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose Vanessa's advice over our marriage. You chose Dylan over me. You chose to leave via a sticky note instead of having an adult conversation. Those were not mistakes, they were decisions. I was confused. You were selfish. There is a difference." She stood there crying, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You wanted a villain, Natalie. You needed me to be the inadequate husband, the man who was not enough. The obstacle between you and your authentic life. Congratulations, you got your wish. I am exactly the villain you created." I got into my truck and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot in her expensive red dress, finally understanding what she had lost. The next morning, I got a call from Danny. Natalie had agreed to all our terms. No contest, no alimony, a clean division of assets. She just wanted it to be over. 6 months later, I sold the house and bought a cabin on Lake Oakwood. The shop was doing better than ever. I was in the best shape of my life. And I was dating a woman named Qley who laughed at my jokes and did not see me as a renovation project. Natalie moved to Chicago, starting over with a new job and a new life. I heard she was seeing someone, an accountant this time, someone stable and boring and completely different from Dylan. Maybe she had learned something after all. As for Vanessa, I never heard from her again. Phoenix was probably far enough away to start fresh, to find new friends to manipulate and new marriages to sabotage. I kept the burner phone as a reminder, not of what I had lost, but of what I had gained. Sometimes, the worst betrayal is also the greatest gift, showing you exactly who you are dealing with before it is too late to act. They say the best revenge is living well. They are wrong. The best revenge is becoming the person your enemies forced you to be and discovering you like that person better than the one you were before. I was no longer the accommodating husband, the man who made himself smaller to make others comfortable, the guy who fixed everyone else's problems while ignoring his own. I was something new, something harder, something that would not be taken advantage of ever again. Natalie had wanted me to be the villain in her story of self-discovery and authentic living. Instead, I became the hero of my own story, the man who refused to be destroyed by betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. She had created a monster, all right, just not the kind she was expecting. Comment. I really wanted to share this with you because it touched me deeply. I have learned that protecting your self-respect is never selfish. In fact, it is essential. You deserve clear boundaries in every relationship. When someone repeatedly crosses those lines, it is okay to choose yourself first. True healing starts the moment you decide to take responsibility for your own peace. Be gentle and kind to yourself while going through the pain of letting go. Sometimes, walking away with dignity is the most powerful choice you can make. I hope this encourages you to reflect on what you truly deserve in life. Remember that you have the strength to create a calmer, more authentic future for yourself. You are worthy of real respect and genuine happiness, always. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.
Thank you for taking the time to watch and support our channel. It truly means a